Good evening, you're watching the news at 8. I'm Nidhi Razdan and these are the headlines tonight. The Law Minister writes a letter to the Chief Justice of India suggesting that the government should be part of the judges' appointment panel, says that this will infuse transparency and accountability. The opposition says this is a dangerous move meant to take over the judiciary. Oxfam's new report on rising wealth across the world says that the richest 1% in India own more than 40% of the country's total wealth. Also, that India has the world's highest number of poor people. The Prime Minister holds a mega roadshow in the national capital ahead of the BJP's two-day national executive, which is underway ahead of big state elections this year and, of course, the Lok Sabha polls in 2024. The opposition rejects an election commission plan for migrant voters, saying, how does the government define who migrants are? The EC says that there are nearly 30 crore migrant voters across the country. There is now a stalemate on this issue at the moment. Delhi shivers at 1.5 degrees this morning. The cold wave returns. Mumbai, meanwhile, is now the fifth most polluted city in the world. Well, our top story tonight, the confrontation between the government and judiciary has escalated today, with Law Minister Kiren Rijiju writing to the Chief Justice of India, saying the Supreme Court Collegium, which decides on judges' appointments, should include government representatives as well. In the letter to Chief Justice Chandrachud, the Law Minister has said that this will infuse transparency and public accountability. As news of the letter broke today, Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal called it a dangerous move, saying there should be absolutely no government interference in judicial appointments, while the Congress said this was an attempt to intimidate and then capture the judiciary. But responding to Mr. Kejriwal's tweet, the Law Minister said that his letter was just a precise follow-up action suggested by the Supreme Court when it struck down the National Judicial Appointment Commission, or the NJAC. That was, of course, projected as the alternative to judicial appointments by Parliament and then rejected as illegal by the Supreme Court. Well, Arvind Gunasekar now joining us for more on that big story. Now, Arvind, we've seen this confrontation for several weeks now. The Law Minister, the Vice President all making targeted remarks at the way judges are appointed. But is there any word at all from the Supreme Court on Kiren Rijiju's letter, or is there silence?
Yeah, Nidhi, another public confrontation between the government and also judiciary over the appointment of judges, especially to the higher judiciary. And what we are seeing in the latest of this confrontation is that Union Law Minister writing to the Supreme Court, urging the Supreme Court, or proposing a new form wherein the representation of the government should also be included in the Collegium system. In fact, he has also said that in the two-tier system of Collegium system, there has to be a representation for the Supreme Court Collegium from the center side, and also for the High Court judges, the concerned state should also be represented in the Collegium system. And that seems to be the crux of the letter that has been written by the Union Law Minister to the Chief Justice of India in the first week of January. And what we are being told is that Supreme Court will very soon, the Collegium of the Supreme Court will convene to take a call on this letter that has been written by the Union Law Minister. Though the Supreme Court is tight-lipped on this particular communication, but our sources say that very soon the Supreme Court Collegium will convene and then will take a call, or will take note of this particular communication that the Chief Justice of India has received. Also, if you could see the defense of the government is saying that we are not doing anything extraordinary. What was given in the NJAC judgment by the Supreme Court Constitution Bench in order to rejig, or in order to complete the memorandum of procedure for appointment of judges, that is something that the centre is saying, that we are just following what has been proposed in the NJAC judgment, and that's why we are making such recommendations for in order to strengthen the memorandum of procedure. And the government is saying that this is just to ensure that there is transparency and also public accountability when it comes to the appointment of judges.
All right, Arvind, thanks very much. Quite a big developing story there. Thanks very much for joining us. Meanwhile, Oxfam's new report on wealth inequality in the world, including in India, has been released, and the report says that the top 1% of people in India hold more than 40% of the total national wealth, that the combined wealth of India's 100 richest people is at more than 54 lakh crores. It's also pointed out that the combined wealth of India's 100 richest rose by 33% from 2021. India also has the world's highest number of poor people at 228.9 million, while the number of billionaires also rose from 102 in 2020 to 166 in 2022. My colleague Vishnu Shom is in Davos, where the World Economic Forum has kicked off. He spoke to the head of Oxfam.
Well, the World Economic Forum in Davos is described as a gathering of the world's rich and the most powerful, perhaps the most influential as well. But year after year, Oxfam comes out with a report called the Global Inequality Report, which is, I would suggest, a reality check to whatever else is happening in Davos. Gabriela Buscher is with us. She's the Executive Director of Oxfam. Thanks very much. Gone through the report. One of the most striking statistics, the richest 1% hold 45.6% of global wealth. Now, year after year, Oxfam comes here to make that point. Why?
Traditionally, yes, there's been a greater accumulation by the richest 1%, but in the 2 years of the pandemic, this went even further to almost two-thirds of total new wealth created going to the richest 1%. So it means there's an acceleration of this accumulation that we've been seeing over time. Especially striking considering the state of the world, where we have 1 in 10 people in hunger. We have the cost of living crisis that is really a cost of survival, because for most people it's really getting basic food, heating, it's a struggle everywhere. And in that context is where we're seeing this enormous amount of wealth being amassed. Yes, it's been increasing, and of course we also now see it's not only the very stark social consequences, but also the planet. So we show that billionaires, in fact, spend and use so much more carbon than the average person. In fact, 1 million times more, considering also their investments, which are more represented in the fossil fuel industry. So that means really we can't afford that in terms of humanity. It's not sustainable for the planet. It's in reality an accumulation of wealth, but also of power, because they have it in their hands to make the changes that are necessary. And what we see is that societies are not choosing to tax the wealthiest. I mean, we don't talk about wealth enough.
Meanwhile, on to national politics now, and the BJP's two-day national executive has kicked off in the national capital from today. It's the big brainstorming meeting that the party is having ahead of 9, possibly 10 state elections this year, if Jammu and Kashmir also sees polls, and of course the Lok Sabha election, which is next year in May in 2024. The Prime Minister holding a roadshow in the national capital ahead of that meeting, with the party strategizing on key political, economic and other resolutions. Well, just a short while ago, Finance Minister and BJP leader Nirmala Sitharaman addressed the media about some of the big issues that were discussed, amongst other things, the big win in the Gujarat for the BJP, the lessons that they took away from that. And she also made a reference to the opposition's campaign against the Prime Minister.
प्रधानमंत्री जी के खिलाफ नेगेटिव कैंपेन करना और उसमें एकदम हल्के भाषा में या अब्यूसिव लैंग्वेज के साथ, नेगेटिव टोन के साथ प्रधानमंत्री जी को व्यक्तिगत नीचे दिखाते हुए भाषा के साथ बार बार जो नेगेटिव कैंपेन होते रहा, उन सब में लीगली कोर्ट एक के बाद दूसरा करके सुप्रीम कोर्ट तक मामला हर एक बार गया.
Well, my colleague Ankit Tyagi is covering that big BJP meeting and joins us now. So, Ankit, what really are sort of the big takeaways for the party as it heads into these election challenges now?
Well, tomorrow is going to be the big strategy meet, but Nidhi, if I can sum it up, in fact, at this moment, Nirmala Sitharaman still speaking. Every resolution ended with thanking Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So from his road show to whatever has been spoken inside, it is all about Narendra Modi, and that is exactly what the BJP's big takeaway from this entire key meet is. In fact, the Finance Minister also saying that the Prime Minister has not only raised the prestige of the country all across the globe, but it is with G20 presidentship coming into India, and also the stature of India which is growing, it's all because of the Prime Minister. There were resolutions which were passed inside which thanked the Prime Minister for the massive victory of Gujarat, and how that should be replicated in the various state elections which are coming up in 2023. She also in fact went on and said that it is just not on the diplomatic international fora or the national politics, but the Prime Minister's immense contribution for, in fact, the people as far as the Adhyatmic capital, the spiritual capital and the history of this country is concerned. Reviving that is something that the BJP thanked the Prime Minister for. So in a nutshell, it was all around the Prime Minister and was all about the Prime Minister as far as the BJP, so National Executive Day 1 is concerned.
All right, as you said, tomorrow is the big day in terms of the Prime Minister's speech as well. Thanks very much, Ankit, for that update. Meanwhile, Karnataka will be having elections later this year. It's expected to happen in May. And Congress General Secretary Priyanka Gandhi addressed a convention of women Congress workers in Bangalore today. The Karnataka Congress has also made its first poll promise already, promising 200 units of free electricity for all households.
Because there is not one thing that we want to do to make you strong. There are many things that we want to do to be able to make you stand up on your own feet and fight for yourselves. You know, we have also announced the 200 units free electricity recently. So 200 units of free electricity will be provided to every house. And in addition, my colleagues will be announcing in their Women's Manifesto many new schemes for all of you to be able to move forward and to bring a change in your lives.
Meanwhile, Rahul Gandhi's Bharat Jodo Yatra will be entering Jammu and Kashmir on the 19th, in just a few days from now. But there are talks going on between the government and the Congress as far as his security is concerned, with security agencies concerned about a possible terror threat along his plan to walk between Jammu and Srinagar. He has been advised to walk, not to walk, but use a car for at least some stretches. Well, my colleague Neeta Sharma now joins us for more on that. Neeta, obviously security will in any case be particularly on heightened alert in J&K at this point because of Republic Day. And Rahul Gandhi is literally entering the UT just days before Republic Day. So what are security agencies saying?
Absolutely, Nidhi. Jammu and Kashmir is already on high alert, keeping in mind that 26 January is coming, and already they are getting so many inputs regarding terror attacks. But Mr. Rahul Gandhi is entering Jammu through Kathua on 19th. As per his plans, Nidhi, he will proceed to Kathua's Harti Mode next morning, that is on January 20th. It will again, they will halt that night in Chatwal. On morning, that is on January 21st, they will go to Duggar Haveli and proceed to Satwari in Jammu. So from 19th to 22nd of January, they will be in Jammu. Then they will proceed towards Srinagar. Interestingly, Nidhi, they would be, Rahul Gandhi would be unfurling the tricolor in Banihal on January 25th. After 2 days, that is on January 27th, his yatra would be entering Srinagar via Anantnag. So the yatra would end on January 30th. But serious security concerns are obviously there, as you were mentioning, that he has been advised by the security agencies to cover some stretches at least by car and not by foot, keeping in mind the security situation of that area. And also that when the yatra reaches Srinagar, they have been advised, to identify who all would be there in yatra, and a limited number of people would only be allowed to move with him towards Srinagar. That's what we are being told. Right. The security agencies right now are chalking out detailed plan with his team as per night halls, where are they going to stay, etc. Nidhi?
Right. All right, Neeta, thanks very much for that update. Meanwhile, today, opposition parties protested at the Election Commission against a planned demonstration that they were going to have for how they could have remote voting machines for migrant voters. Instead, the opposition has asked the Election Commission and the government how migrant voters are going to be defined. Take a look.
It was meant to be a demonstration by Election Commission officials for all political parties of a prototype of remote voting machines to allow migrants to vote from wherever they are. But it turned into a protest by most political parties, which opposed the decision and questioned why political parties weren't consulted. They also questioned the government's definition of migrants.
Look, we are putting the cart before the horse, and that's something I said as well, that we are putting the cart before the horse. We are here to see a demonstration of a remote voting machine and decide on its technicalities. But we here, who are representatives of the democracy of India, none of us have even talked about whether we are going to agree in agreement with the use of this remote voting machine. So why have we spent research and development into developing a machine when there is no basic agreement about whether we are going to use the machine or not?
According to the Election Commission, there are nearly 30 crore migrant voters across the country. These are unable to vote during general elections. But opposition parties oppose this figure, pointing out that 6 months ago, the government had said in Parliament there were 70,000 migrant voters in the country.
6 महीना पहले भी सरकार ने पार्लियामेंट में जो प्रस्तुति किया है उसमें वो सिर्फ 70,000 माइग्रेंट वर्कर का उल्लेख करता है, लेकिन यहाँ पे चुनाव आयोग के दस्तावेज में वो बोल रहा है कि 30 करोड़ है हमारे देश में प्रवासी मजदूर.
Nearly, I would say almost 99% of all the political parties present ask the basic question, what is migrant labor voting mean? What are we even trying to do here? So it was decided by all of us that there is no question of even looking at a demonstration of a system, because we first want to understand what is this idea. And all of us expressed skepticism about what this will achieve without eroding the trust further in the election process.
Other political parties like the Shinde faction of the Shiv Sena have welcomed the Election Commission's decision.
Why have you all welcomed the EVM? जो टारगेट है 100% वोटिंग परसेंटेज होना चाहिए, वो टारगेट अचीव करने के लिए जो इनिशिएटिव लिया है इलेक्शन कमीशन ने.
Allowing migrant labor to vote across the country is going to be easier said than done, and the Election Commission realizes it needs to build a consensus amongst political parties before giving the green signal. With camera person Karan Patra, Sunil Prabhu, NDTV.
Meanwhile, if you live in North India, the cold wave is back, and how? Temperatures in Delhi dipped to 1.5 degrees Celsius this morning.
Delhi shivering at 1.5 degrees this morning. The capital's coldest day this season and 2 degrees below normal. But there is even more to come. The Met Department says temperatures are expected to drop further by another degree in the next few days. Temperatures are below freezing point in many parts of Kashmir that is currently under the grip of the harshest period of its winter, the intense 40 days that started with the winter solstice in late December. The Met Department says cold wave to severe cold wave conditions are very likely over many parts of Rajasthan, Punjab and Haryana, Chandigarh and Delhi till the 17th of January, and thereafter in isolated pockets on the 18th. Dense fog and low visibility is also forecast over the northwestern part of the country for the next 5 days. Because of the cold, schools till class 8 have been shut in parts of Rajasthan, including the Udaipur and Bikaner districts for the next 3 days. Haryana schools that were supposed to open on the 16th of January will now open a week later on the 23rd. Uttar Pradesh has modified school timings to remove any early morning classes, while schools have reopened in Delhi starting today. With the minimum temperatures dropping to sub-zero in the northwest region, mainly in Rajasthan and Punjab, ground frost has also appeared in several parts, posing a threat to wheat and vegetable crops. Parmeshwar Bava for NDTV. Meanwhile, Mumbai has become the 5th most polluted city in the world. Its air quality in the very poor category, covered in a dense layer of fog and dust. Many Mumbaikas are now complaining of respiratory problems.
Covered with a thick layer of fog, smog and dust, India's financial capital Mumbai is today the world's 5th most polluted major city, according to a Swiss tracker. Patients with respiratory problems have surged in hospitals. Some have reported about 50% more than usual, with children and the elderly being the worst affected.
सांस में प्रॉब्लम है, खांसी आ रही है, थोड़ा सा जुकाम भी हो रहा है. ये मतलब जो एनवायरनमेंट है गंदा, इसी की वजह से हुआ. इनको इन्फेक्शन हो गया था.
करीबन 80% ग्रोथ दिखाई दिया है. हालांकि ये जो विंटर सीजन है वो जनरली हेल्दी सीजन पाया जाता है, लेकिन इसमें रेस्पिरेटरी रिलेटेड जो डिसऑर्डर्स है वो काफी बड़े हुए दिख रहे हैं.
Mumbai's air quality is at 314, which is in the very poor air quality category. What's worse is that in places like East Andheri, The PM 2.5 level was almost 300 micrograms per cubic meter of air, which is almost 60 times the WHO's safe limit. The air has also become poisonous due to the fall in temperature. On Sunday, the minimum temperature was recorded at 13 degrees Celsius, the coldest day of the season in the city.
मुंबई की हवा फिर एक बार वेरी पुअर कैटेगरी में चली गई है। ये इस सीजन में 2023-22-23 के सर्दी के सीजन में ये हमेशा हो रहा है और इसका जैसे बताया गया है पहले ही कि एक लार्ज स्केल सर्कुलेशन चेंज हो रहा है जो कि मोस्ट प्रोबेबली क्लाइमेट चेंज का एक इम्पैक्ट है और यहाँ पे जो भी कंस्ट्रक्शन एक्टिविटीज़ हो रही हैं, जो धूल हैंग हो रही है वो डिस्पर्स नहीं हो पा रही है और दैट इज़ द रीज़न कि एयर क्वालिटी खराब है। ओवर एंड अबाउ ऑफ दिस क्या हो रहा है कि आपका टेम्परेचर कूल हो रहा है। टेम्परेचर जब कूल होता है तो वैसे ही विंड्स को काम करता है।
This is the first time Mumbai has seen a long period of poor to very poor AQI, with the city usually seeing an AQI of moderate to poor in winter months. But it's not just Mumbai. Sharing space in the top 10 were Delhi, a near permanent occupant, and Kolkata. With Pooja Bhardwaj in Mumbai, this is Nayanthara Singh for NDTV.
5 Indians are among those dead in Nepal's plane crash on Sunday, 4 of them friends who were from the same Uttar Pradesh district. They had first gone to Kathmandu to pray at a famous temple and then were on their way to Pokhara, which is of course a famous tourist destination. My colleague Alok Pandey has more.
The final moments of 35-year-old Sonu Jaiswal, a liquor store owner from Uttar Pradesh's Ghazipur district, and one among the 5 Indians killed in the Nepal plane crash on Sunday, caught on camera. Mr. Jaiswal was filming just before the crash. Sonu and 3 of his friends, also from Ghazipur, all died in the plane crash. They had gone to Nepal to pray at the famous Pashupatinath temple in Kathmandu and were travelling together by the Yeti Air flight to the lakeside district of Pokhara, a famous tourist destination. Among those killed, Abhishek Kushwaha, in his late 20s and a customer service centre owner, who died just hours before his birthday on Monday. At his village home in Ghazipur, distraught family members and friends said he had made big plans to celebrate.
कुशवाहा जो है वो मेरा बहुत खास दोस्त है। साथ में पढ़े हम लोग, बहुत लंबे टाइम से साथ में हम लोग। आज 15 जनवरी है,
16 जनवरी को उनका बर्थडे,
कल उसका बर्थडे है। हाँ, बात हुई थी, अभी मिला था, दुकान पे उसके गए थे, पूछे कि मतलब अभी पिछले टूर से जो आया था, पूछे आ गए, तो बोला है कि हाँ आ गए और जा भी रहे हैं। अब आज मुझे निकलना है। कहाँ? तो काठमांडू के लिए घूमने फिर जा रहे हैं। अभिषेक माता पिता के मतलब उनके 2 लड़के हैं, जिसमें से अभिषेक छोटा था।
Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath has condoled the deaths in the Nepal crash. The bodies of the UP victims are likely to reach their villages soon. With Ajay Singh and Sunil Singh, this is Alok Pandey, NDTV.